my friends, and welcome back to my channel. I hope that you guys are all staying happy, healthy, safe wherever you are in the world. So today we have another Testimony Tuesday, and I'm super excited for this one. So Megan is going to share her testimony, and Megan is such a good friend of mine. She's an amazing person, so I just know that what God has put on her heart to share with you guys is going to be amazing. So I hope that this touches you, and I hope that you enjoy.
So I grew up in a Christian family, but if you knew me from the ages of around 14 to 19, you would not have known this by the way I was living. Because I moved countries when I was 14, and I didn't have any friends in this new place that I was, and I was like, what's going on? The teachers tried to put me in with this crowd that I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if I fit in with them. So I tried to fit in with these other people. So with fitting in, that came with drinking and chatting to loads of boys and swearing, etc. However, when I was with my family or at church, I always tried to hide that about me. So it was basically as if I was living two completely different lives. And they were both complete lies because they were so opposite of each other. Like there was this one bit where I was just partying all the time, and this other one where I was like this amazing Christian girl who never did anything wrong, you know. And I didn't really know who I was, and all I wanted was to just be liked by people. Like I tried to find my worth in what people were thinking about me, and so often if people didn't like me, it I got really upset, and it really yeah, made me quite distressed, and I would cry a lot, and it was not good. It was not a good time for me growing up. And although I was going around and drinking and lying and etc., all those things that you could probably list as the most common bad things to do when you're a child, I was doing all those. And even though I was doing all those, God still spoke to me. And if you don't really know what that means, it's kind of well, it's different to everyone. If you speak to any Christian, they'll probably say that God speaks to them in different ways. And for me, he kind of speaks to me in my thoughts, which sounds totally crazy, but whenever I get a thought and I know it's not my own, that's when I know God is speaking to me. It sounds totally weird, I know, and it's creepy. You might be like, girl, you're just crazy, but it's true. And there was I also got certain senses. So for example, I don't know, I would just suddenly feel like God was trying to tell me something, and I could feel that. Yes, it sounds weird, but it's true. But yeah, so all through me doing all these bad girl stuff, God was just trying to speak to me and telling me that he still loved me and everything. um but I was just so ashamed, and I felt so guilty, and that wasn't God at all. That was my own, I was putting that on myself. And this guilt that I was feeling, that was nowhere close to what God was wanting for me, because he wanted to give me love, but I was putting guilt and shame on myself that I didn't want God to come close to that at all. And for ages, I wished that I didn't believe in God, because I thought it would make everything easier. I could just go about living my life, drinking and sleeping with boys and all this, and I would feel no guilt. However, that's that I just couldn't not believe. From a young age, I knew God was real, and he had shown me he was real. And like I said, he had spoken to me throughout all of this. So I always knew he wasn't real, even though I really didn't want him to be, because I thought it would make my life so much easier. So when I moved to university, it meant that I didn't have to do all that Christian stuff anymore, like going to Bible studies and going to church. I was like, oh yeah, I don't need to do that anymore. I'll just kind of live my life the way I want. I'll go if I feel like it. And so I went, usually I would go to church just because I didn't have to lie to my mum if I did, because my parents would always ask me to be like, so did you go to church on Sunday? And I'd be like, uh-huh. And they were like, oh, what did they speak about? And I was like, yeah, I can't remember. So I would go just so I could like tell them what happened, basically. Not the right reasons to be going to church, but that's what I did. And even though like I stopped all this like Christian stuff, I still believed in God. Like that knowledge was still there. I couldn't like stop believing. And it's like I still don't know who I was. Like I couldn't find that balance of like I was still Christian and I like believed that. And I was kind of like sort of trying to live that way, even though like wishing that I didn't have to kind of thing, but then also like wanting to do whatever I wanted. And I just couldn't find that balance. And I just like really didn't know who I was. And no one, like, it felt like nobody knew me because I was living two complete lies and nobody knew who I actually was. So it was like very confusing teenage years, as it is for many, I'm sure. But when I went through like a quite bad breakup with a guy I loved way too much, um, I was even more lost than ever before. This was a guy that I'd spoken to about a lot of things, like he knew me better than a lot of other people. And suddenly he was gone, and I was like, what do I do? So there I was in my room in my uni halls, and I was just like having this panic attack and I was crying. All of a sudden, like I looked at my bookshelf. I don't even know why I looked at my bookshelf, but there was my Bible that I'd gotten years and years ago. Like I think whilst I was like 12 or something, I got this Bible and I looked at it and I took it out and I hadn't opened the Bible on my own will for years as well. So I opened this and I opened it, like randomly opened it because, I thought that's how God spoke to you. Just open, which he can. You just open the Bible at a random spot and that word's going to be for you. And for the first time ever, it did. Because this is what it said: For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all my heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and I will restore your fortunes and gather you from all the nations and all the places where I have driven you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back to the place from which I sent you into exile. So that last bit maybe sounds a bit like, I don't know, weird, but I could like really resonated with that. Here it was, I was randomly opened this Bible that I hadn't opened for years, and it was telling me that God had a plan for me. God had a future, and I could like, and a hope as well. Everything wasn't lost. I had that hope in God. Like he had something planned for me. And he was saying, like, I am here. Like, come to me. Like, I want to listen to you. I want to hear what you have to say. Like just come. Like I want you to know me and I want to know you. And this last verse, which some people might think sounds a little weird with the gathering you from all the nations and bringing you back from exile. But for me, reading this, it made so much sense because it was like I had like spread myself so thin. I was like all these different people that, and I didn't really know who I was. And it was like God saying, I'm going to bring you back and you're going to be the person that I want you to be. And it was like, yeah, it was just such an amazing verse to read. And I don't even, yeah, it was so random. And I was kind of in shock whilst I was there. I was crying onto this page and it was just like the weirdest moment ever. But like, yeah, it just gave me that hope that nothing, like everything wasn't lost. And that's something I really needed. And at that point I knew God was with me, and yeah, that he had that great plan for my life. And I finally knew who I was. Like I was God's and I could be who I wanted to be. And when I was lost and didn't really know who to talk to, like God just told me I could come and speak to him, whether it was like about what I ate for dinner or whether it was about like this, all like I'd cried in the hallway or something. Like God wanted to know. And this is when like my view of God completely changed, because I used to think like God was this just a God of rules and I had to stick by the rules. Like you couldn't get drunk, you couldn't like dress weirdly, like, well, skimpy or whatever, and you couldn't go have sex before marriage, and there was all these rules that I like had to follow, and I just thought like God was judging me for everything I did. Yeah, in this moment of like this time, like I found out that like God was a relational God, that he's already forgiven me for everything that I've done. And even when I don't deserve it, like he came and like just loved me. And God was the only person who would love me no matter what I did at all. And like, yeah, it was just this massive, big changing point in my life, because I was relying on this other guy to give me what I needed from God, and that was that love no matter what I did and to show me who I was. Yeah, I couldn't find that in a guy, because I'm asking way too much of a human man. Like, how can this guy give me everything that I want in my life? Like, that was crazy to expect of anyone. But actually, God comes in and he's like, I love you. Like, come and speak to me, like, always. And he wanted me to, like, come by him and all that. So then, after I did start, like, speaking to God and kind of knowing him a bit more, like, that was when my life changed. I used to think I had to follow all these rules and that's how I would get close to God. But actually, you get close to God and then your life starts changing, which was a very slow journey. Like, and there's still things that, like, yeah, I definitely should be changing about myself. I'm still a simple human. And like, so sin is like where you miss the mark, basically. So when you're like lying or anything that you can think of that someone does wrong, like, that's what sinning is. And I like do loads of them still, and I'm still working on that, and I'm still on a journey. But it wasn't until I actually had that relationship with God and like could speak to him that my life started changing. That's when it worked. Even though I tried to change my life for 5 years, it was finally when I actually had that relationship with God that started changing. And it's not been an easy journey since. Like, my life hasn't been all fairy tales and butterflies at all. If you know me, like, you know that is very true. I've had some really tough times in my life. But I know that I have an unchanging, a faithful, and a merciful God. And like, that's all that I need. And even in these hard times, like, I know God has a purpose for my life and I can find joy in him. So yeah, if you ever want to like chat to me a bit more, like, please get in contact. I'd love to share a bit more about my story.